Hey guys, this is Brandon from buildingwithdairy.com. Today we're going to be talking about why cheddar cheese is orange. Now, depending on what part of the country you live, cheddar cheese is or isn't orange. There are two main types. There's white cheddar and there's orange cheddar. And when you actually look at the country of the United States, it kind of breaks down geographically, where parts of the Northwest and parts of the Northeast are strictly white cheddar fans. And you get a lot more of the orange cheddar fans when you go kind of to the middle of the country, kind of with Wisconsin being the hub. So we've actually done some research on this, and the color, not only the shade of the orange, but the color of the cheese actually affects how much you like a cheese. So depending on what part of the country you're from, you either like or dislike white cheese or orange cheese, depending on what color it is. Now, that being said, let's talk a little bit of history about cheddar cheese, and let's talk about why in the heck it's orange. Cheddar cheese comes from a certain part of England. There used to be these caves or caverns that were near an area called Cheddar. And when these families owned cows and had dairy farms, a cow can produce anywhere from 6 to 12 gallons of milk a day, which is way too much for a small family to drink. So they would have to turn it into different products like butter or cheese. They found out that when they made cheese and they stuck it in these caverns, that it had the right temperature and humidity for aging. That made really good, tasty cheddar cheese. And nowadays, when we make cheddar cheese, we kind of mimic those same humidity and temperature profiles as those caves and caverns, but we do it artificially. Now, what does orange have to do with any of this? The cheese color changed seasonally with the milk. The cows would normally graze in grass, and different times of year they had different access to different foods. In the winter, obviously, not as many fruits and vegetables grow as in the spring and summer. So when they're wandering around in the spring and summer and they find different vegetables, the vitamins and colorants that make those vegetables different colors would actually bleed through the milk. And when you made cheese from that higher vitamin fortified milk, it actually made the cheese a little bit more yellow, a little bit more orange. So this became a standard for high quality cheese. People were looking for that yellowy to orange hue in the cheese because that meant it was a little bit more rich in flavor and rich in nutrition. So ethically or unethically, other cheese manufacturers started to add a little bit of orange color to make it look like their cheese was as high quality as the cheese that was naturally fortified and naturally yellow to orange. Nowadays, we are more, I guess we consume orange cheese more out of tradition. Like I mentioned earlier, people actually want to see the orange cheese. Then it has to deal with quality of cheese. But it also now deals with an even more important parameter. Let's take a food example like Cheetos. Cheetos have a really orange color, really unique orange color. They're known for coloring your fingers orange. If throughout the year you had spans of month where the Cheetos were really orange, and then some months where they were red, and some months where they were yellow, you would be concerned as a consumer as to why the color was changing and assume something was wrong. Likewise, as our milk changes throughout the year, slightly in composition due to what's fed to the cows. And even though in the modern dairy farm, each farm usually has a nutritionist that designs a food plan for all of the cows, there still is slight color variations. So cheddar cheese is added to help you not be concerned when the cheese changes colors throughout the year, as well as its tradition. So what makes the cheddar cheese orange? They add a natural colorant, which is annatto, which comes from a certain tree, and the seeds of that tree, when you grind them up, make an orange powder, and that gets added into the cheese milk before the milk is turned into cheese. Each company kind of has their recipe and their shade, but annatto is pretty much used across the board. It's also used in other cooking. I lived in Mexico for a little while. I really love tacos. Tacos al pastor are a little bit orange in color, and they add achiote, which is annatto in Spanish, and to give it that orange hue. So that same natural colorant is used in cheese. There have been some newer colorants that have been developed, mainly beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is the main vitamin that makes carrots orange. So there's been some work done, and we've been involved in some of that work to see how well you can use beta-carotene as a cheese colorant. There's a couple little problems that poke up in this initial wave of beta-carotene usage. One is that the orange color isn't quite right, so it looks a little bit darker, a little orange-red instead of orange-yellow, and people don't necessarily like that. As well as when you age a cheese that's made with beta-carotene, towards the end you kind of get a little bit of a carroty flavor, which obviously no one wants their cheese to taste like carrots. So today, let's go on. I'm going to get my lab coat on. We're going to go ahead and make some cheddar cheese on the stove here, using some simple ingredients, basic cheese manufacturing ingredients, and then kind of show you what that looks like when we add the colorant to the milk and how the cheese itself turns out and looks orange. So let's get going and make some cheese. There are a couple of ingredients in cheddar cheese, first of which is milk, followed by sometimes they can add some added ingredients to kind of help make the cheese more firm. Today we'll be using something called calcium chloride, which I have just in this little vial, which is basically like a super saturated calcium solution, which will just make our cheese a little bit more firm. And then for cheddar cheese, the bacteria that's added, it's usually referred to as starter culture. Probiotic bacteria that's added to kind of produce some acidity, and they kind of help produce flavor during the cheese aging. In order to make cheddar cheese, they basically play no role besides some slight acidification and some flavor stuff, so we're going to omit them today, just because they're a little bit hard to handle and deal with, because they're usually frozen or dried. But today we're going to be using the enzyme that makes cheese. This is called rennet. This is the enzyme that's traditionally found in a baby cow's stomach that helps them break down the milk. And this is what's going to turn our milk today into cheese. So to start off, we're going to take some of this delicious pasteurized milk from the store and add a couple cups here into just a measuring cup. We're going to just do a couple cups of milk today. To this, we're going to add a little bit of the calcium chloride solution. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. Nailed it. Okay, then here we have our concentrated annatto solution. So this is what I was talking about before, that colors our cheese. We're just going to go ahead and add a couple drops. We'll kind of try to get a close-up here of what it looks like as it's dripping in. But this is going to help turn our cheese orange. Probably need to superimpose some artistic music while we're doing this, because this is beautiful. So I'm going to add a lot of orange just to make it more dramatic. But this would get added in and we get mixed in. Get a really nice orange color. So you can see this is a pretty typical shade of cheese, like a mild cheddar cheese that you'd buy at the store. So cheese is normally warmed up to, I usually think in Celsius, but at about 31 degrees Celsius, and during the cheese making process for cheddar it gets up to like 39. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this into a pot here on our stove. We'll kind of track the temperature, and then once it gets up to that 31 degrees Celsius, which is, I don't know, somewhere in the low 80s degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to add the rennet because the enzyme is active in that temperature range. Then we'll let it sit and let the cheese set up, and then you'll see that the cheese will form on top of the pot. And then we'll cut it, we'll filter it out, and then we'll kind of talk some more about it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more just so we can see it a little bit better in the pot here. Now we're not going for boiling the milk here, we're just trying to warm it up a little bit so that the enzyme is more active. I'm going to use my smoking temperature probe because I don't know where my thermometer is. And we're just going to kind of track the temperature. Alright, now our cheese milk is at the right temperature. We've warmed it up to like that 80 degrees Fahrenheit range. Now we're going to add some of this enzyme. Go ahead and mix it up. So what this enzyme is going to do is cleave the main protein structure of the milk itself and cause it to fall out of solution and create our curds and whey. So with that much enzyme in there, we'll just go ahead and use this to give it a little stir here. Oh, I can already feel it starting to work. And then we're going to go ahead and let this sit for about 30 minutes. Alright, so our cheese has been sitting for about 30 minutes. Now we can go ahead and take off the lid. And what do you know? We made cheese here. So kind of get it off the edge here. This obviously isn't going to be perfect or pretty because we're doing it just at home. But one thing I want you to note is this clear portion is the whey, and this curdy stuff on top is our cheese curd. Normally at this point in an industrial plant they would go ahead and cut it, so I'm just going to kind of simulate that with my knife. It's nice and firm because we added all that calcium chloride. Okay, and in the plant we do a few more steps here to kind of help further expel the cheese, but for the sake of what we're doing, we're just going to go ahead and drain so we can look at the cheese in the whey. Okay, here I've set up a colander and a bowl as well as some cheesecloth to catch our curds. We're going to pour our cheese mixture into here to help separate it. Now, so you'll see we kept all the cheese material, and this obviously doesn't look as pretty because we're making it at home here, but we can kind of hold it up and press it out a little bit, press out some of this whey. Then one thing that I want you to notice real quick, hopefully you can see this good on camera. You cannot see that good in that bowl. Let me grab a white bowl real fast. So this whey, this liquid, when we pour it into a white bottom bowl, you can see is orange. This is part of the problem with coloring cheese, is that our whey becomes orange and then it requires us to do different bleaching techniques so that we can make it clear, so that we can make like whey protein sports beverages. But anyway, so some of the colorant does get into the whey, but if we go back to our cheese here, we now have a pressed cheese curd here that we would then put in some kind of mold, further press it to expel some of the cheese. It would go through a cheddaring process, it would get milled and salted and then formed into a block and sent home in your shopping cart. Okay, well I hope you learned a little bit more about why cheddar cheese is orange. We didn't make the most beautiful cheese today, but I think you can kind of get the idea about how it's colored and how it gets orange and comes to you. If you have any questions or comments about this video, make sure to type it down below in the comments section. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up here. Subscribe to our channel to get more videos like this. I'll put a link in the description to our blog at www.buildingwithdairy.com, where we have an article where we outline everything that we talked about in this video today. You can check out that link in the description. Thanks for watching our video, and we'll catch you next time.